I'm Griot Gabriel, and this spoken word is about an experience I had with the police growing up. This spoken word is about the time I got stopped and searched by police. So many instances I could pick out by the age of 18, but this recent one sticks out due to Officer 14731's blatant cheek. All the while I considered complaining to the IOPC, but I knew that nothing would get done, nothing would come of it. So I thought I'd share my experiences of racist policing uncovering. You see, I was parked up in a German whip, and he pulls up. He must have thought I was waiting to pick up or drop bricks because he jumps out and says, "We're searching your car." I replied, "Good luck. You'd be lucky to find a spliff," trying to explain my position to his racist suspicions. But my words were a myth. So now we scuffle. And eventually I'm propped up against the curb after the struggle. Being a victim of the PACE Act stop and search, this ain't America. But UK feds can get rowdy, and I don't want to be remembered when I'm laying in a hearse. I'm forced to take the trauma. All the while I remember Mumsy's words. Melanin is a gift, my son, not a curse. So try and imagine the anger that inflamed. I felt like a slave the way they had me in cuffs, handling rough, feeling ashamed, knowing that fighting back would leave me fucked. So then the lion's rage had to be tamed because it had to be due to the colour of my skin. They called me an IC3 male, alongside the fact that I was in an urban community with barbed wires and fences that impale. Or maybe my car was far too luxurious, so consequently my Audi A4 made him curious, pulling up in front of me like, "Can I have your details?" It was as though the 4 circles of the Audi symbol was enough to divide any reasonable logic. Now I find myself in the 2 circles of handcuffs. It tightens as he locks it. He's scrummaging through my pockets. He don't think I know, but I know it. He's trying to find some incriminating evidence in a system set to make profit by me being a statistic to the prison industrial complex. Yeah, the system's fucked. Because the lust for wealth supersedes the love for good, so private prisons seek to lock up miseducated black boys from the hood. Now I could tell he thought my words were a lie. Because every word I said to the officer was followed by sighs, claiming my story was fabricated fiction filled with false alibis. But just like 85% of stop and searches in the UK, it was pointless. The only thing he created is more frustration to the voiceless because my story is nothing new. I ain't the first black male nor the last to be discriminated against. I just wanted my words to be heard so Officer 14731 could know that he possibly holds on to racist tendencies that are absurd. And he can begin to unlearn what's taught through institutions and silently through society, you see. It's one thing to listen, and it's totally another thing to be heard. Because Officer 14731 has probably heard the rhetoric of racial profiling, but hasn't genuinely listened to the voice behind the person he's harassing is frightening because you paint us all with the same brush. Now that's dangerous. Because when we call you all pigs, you say there's good police out there and you should learn not to hate us. But why would we put our trust in a system with an insidious motive to cage us? Or worse still, you try demonize our character to justify reasons to frame or blame us. So Officer 14731, the irony is that you say we play the blame game far too often. But if I'm being truthfully, brutally honest, I think your racist policing is the problem. And that's where the story ends, until I get stopped and searched again. Griot Gabriel. The next poem is it's a remake from Tupac's "The Rose That Grew from Concrete." Check it out. So ask me how it came to be that the seed of the rose was sown upon the harsh realities of concrete. Or ask me how it came to be that most black and brown people are raised in a place that is crazed in deprivation and poverty. See, the rose is I and the rose is you. And this concrete is the place that we were forced to live through. This concrete was systematically formed by policies and unjust laws pressed upon the face of the poor by those in power, living blissfully unaware of the terrors that affect us, the flowers. The concrete is hard, the concrete is cold. Once cemented in the mind, it's never impossible to remold. The concrete resides as single mums raising Afro-Caribbean and British sons, praying their children ain't slain by the shady slums. Daddy's never there, I ask you. What is little Junior likely to become? This concrete? It's a place where brothers reject the paper and pen to get emancipated minds. They neglect their intellect, but they respect the pen, only when it's a consequence to crime. The concrete sees poverty and tries to make us poorer. No wonder we get sucked by the bookies on every street corner. The concrete resides in many unemployed that are deemed unimportant. So the chances for change are shortened. We're the ones shortchanged and still enforce chains. Recipients of a welfare state designed to keep the poor depraved, unable to challenge the corrupt displayed, because how can you bite the hand that feeds the slave? You see, the concrete's aim is to divide and rule. Keep the peasants fighting peasants so they remain above us all. If roses are red and violets are blue, we even divide the shrubs. In other words, the violets are crips at war with the roses' bloods, with more in common with your brother than what divides them. But the insanity of the concrete has done well to blind them. This concrete constrains, the concrete contains, the concrete tries to turn an inferno into a flame, the concrete conceals truth by conspiring lies, the concrete constructs hate, hoping our conclusion dies, the concrete condemns us for postcode wars, but yet the concrete commends colonization so other countries are forced to conform. The concrete's conditions are conducive of a consciousness constricted to cope, but if the rose could still grow from the concrete to reach the sun, then I guess in the rose there's still hope. The rose that rose from concrete, don't ask it why. Just thank God and ask it how. So how? How could you still grow in an urban community when you're 5 times more likely to go to jail than university? How could you still grow when the elders would teach the youngest how to sell bags of crack, sell weed, blaze zoots, handle the liquor, if not items jacked, protect the ends with a loaded strap? You see, the rose still rose through the dirt and the mud. And the rose knew its worth through the hurt and the blood. Sweat and tears throughout the years. You see, the rose still had fears. The rose was scared rough. But Mummy and Grandma Rose would stay up and pray to God that the concrete wouldn't tear up the precious little seed that they were trying to rear up. But somehow, in the process of transformation, the rose realized that the reality of the concrete, aka the hood, was not the fullness of life. That past the beef and the straps and the gats and the knives, that past the false ideas of being a man and internalized lies, despite the fact that Rose only had gangsters to play the role of fathers. The rose did not belong in darkness. And the rose rose to a glorious light. Feeling rays of warmth penetrate dark clouds within his soul, the concrete cracked, and there he triumphantly stands, identified as a man, knowing that being comfortable with vulnerability is the ultimate strength. May the concrete crack at a legion of roses bursting forth, awakened by the truth that we are all roses, ready to grow from the concrete. And while they tried to bury us, they didn't know we were seeds, for we were the roses that grew from a crack in the concrete. Thank you. You can find me on Griot Gabriel, Instagram, Facebook, a lot more spoken word. Follow me on the journey. Griot Gang.